This is CBN Newswatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN Newswatch. I'm George Thomas. We begin this half hour with the Biden administration announcing new policies to handle the surge of migrants crossing the southern border. It includes granting temporary legal status to hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans who are already in the country. Charlene Aaron has more on our top story.
After growing pressure to do more on the country's immigration crisis, President Biden is taking action. The White House granting temporary legal status to an estimated 472,000 Venezuelans who arrived in the country as of July 31st, making it easier for them to get work in the U.S. It's a key demand of Democrat mayors and governors who are struggling to care for an increased number of migrants in their care.
There's no end in sight. We don't know, when it's going to end.
New York City is currently paying to house 60,000 newly arrived migrants, and more could be on the way as the southern border sees a new surge. Eagle Pass, Texas, now declaring an emergency, with 2,500 migrants arriving yesterday alone. And hundreds of migrants were seen riding on top of this Mexican train heading north. The administration is also sending 800 Defense Department personnel to the border, in addition to the 2,500 National Guard members already deployed to help Customs and Border Protection. Plus, it's widening protocols to deport more families under an existing program. From New York to Illinois to Arizona, states have been overwhelmed with a surge of migrants. Buses filled with immigrants arriving daily. In San Diego County, Border Patrol forced to release about 4,000 migrants in just the past week. Processing centers and shelters are filled to capacity. Frustrated local officials demanding action from Washington.
This isn't a political situation. This is not a left or right issue. This is an immigration system that has failed. As a county, we are not resourced to handle this many people, coming in.
Meanwhile, Chicago is also struggling to cope with the migrant surge. The city is now spending $29 million to build tent camps for migrants. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thank you, Charlene. One former president charged with multiple federal crimes. The current president's son also under indictment. And the Attorney General with a whole lot of questions to answer. Attorney General Merrick Garland facing the fire from lawmakers yesterday on Capitol Hill, appearing before the House Judiciary Committee for the first time in nearly 2 years. The GOP-led committee didn't waste their opportunity to question Garland about claims of bias at the Department of Justice. Hillary Powell reports from Capitol Hill.
There are a lot of spicy back and forths and clapbacks between Attorney General Merrick Garland and also the Judiciary Committee. This is a routine committee, but we're seeing the Attorney General face to face with some of his most ardent critics. Republicans are using this as an opportunity to really grill the Attorney General on whether there's fairness or bias in the Justice Department under President Joe Biden. In a high-stakes hearing before the House Judiciary Committee, Republican lawmakers questioned Attorney General Merrick Garland's pledge to remain above politics. Garland was on the defensive.
Our job is not to take orders from the president, from Congress, or from anyone else about who or what to criminally investigate. As the president himself has said, and I reaffirm today, I am not the president's lawyer.
Garland was grilled about his department's handling of probes and prosecutions of former President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, on felony gun charges. Special counsel David Weiss leads that investigation.
He picks the one guy he knows will protect Joe Biden.
Democrats on the committee defend the DOJ, noting Donald Trump nominated U.S. Attorney David Weiss.
Your decision was to leave the Trump-appointed attorney completely in charge of this, hands off from you. He makes all the calls without interference from the Attorney General. Is that correct?
That is correct.
The president's son was indicted last week on 3 felony federal gun charges, accused of lying about his drug abuse to buy a handgun in 2018, but questions centered on possible preferential treatment.
They see the DOJ, of course, aggressively prosecuting President Biden's chief political rival, Mr. Trump. while at the same time, they see slow walking and special treatment given to the president's son.
This month, an Associated Press Nork Center poll found just 19% of Americans are very or extremely confident the Justice Department is handling its investigation in a fair and nonpartisan way. Half say they are not too confident or not at all confident. Regent University Robertson School of Government Dean Michelle Bachman says the FBI should be free from political interference from both sides of the aisle.
They're eager to prosecute those who have political opposition to the current administration. They seem highly reluctant to prosecute anyone who's associated with the current administration. That is a denial of justice.
In this hearing, we also saw Attorney General Garland being questioned about possible anti-Catholic bias under the Justice Department, under his purview, to which he really forcefully responded. This was brought by Republican Representative Jefferson Van Drew, a question of a series of incidents where he alleges there was anti-Catholic, also anti-Christian bias, including a memo from the FBI about possible FBI agents sent into Catholic churches. Garland said he was appalled by any FBI memo mention of this, and he used his time at the mic to really say that people who practice their faith are not extremists. On Capitol Hill, Hillary Powell, CBN News.
Thank you, Hillary. A group of pro-life activists is facing up to 11 years in prison for blocking access to an abortion clinic in Washington, D.C. Back in 2020, a group of protesters stopped people from entering the clinic and created a barricade in the waiting room, chaining themselves together, preventing access to abortion procedure rooms. A federal jury just convicted 3 of those pro-life protesters. 5 others have already faced similar convictions. All could spend up to 11 years behind bars once sentenced. Another protester pleaded guilty for their involvement in the blockade. He was sentenced to 10 months in prison. Coming up, the graveyard of pastors. See where Christians are beaten and imprisoned for sharing their faith. I take you to India to expose who's trying to purge believers from their land. Welcome back to CBN Newswatch. A surge in violence against Christians has flared up in India, where millions believe the country belongs to Hindus. Many think all other religions must be eliminated from society. Human rights groups accuse India's Prime Minister of supporting this extremist view, and several states have enacted laws to punish non-Hindus. I traveled to Karnataka, India, to bring you this story. Take a look.
Yeah, from here.
At 16 years old, Paul was instructed to target Christians by the Rashtriya Swayam Savak Sangh, or RSS, a radical Hindu paramilitary organization.
Since I was a Hindu and part of the RSS, I became a staunch follower of their Hindu principles, and because of that, killing Christians and pastors became my goal.
We've concealed Paul's identity for safety. He says the RSS singles out Christians because so many Hindus in India are abandoning their faith to follow Jesus Christ. One of the group's early founders referred to Christians as anti-national and hostile and should be treated as such. RSS members seen here often combine religious Hindu education with self-defense classes and exercises.
They told us Christianity doesn't belong to a country because they are converting people. Therefore, we have to attack pastors and demolish their churches so that our country will remain a Hindu country.
Hindus make up just under 80% of India's population. Muslims are at 14%. Christianity is India's third largest religion, with about 26 million followers, or about 2.3% of the population, and their numbers are steadily growing. Determined to stop the growth, Paul thought he had his chance when a pastor visited his hostel. Instead, the encounter changed his life when the pastor shared the gospel with him.
My heart was breaking when I heard that Jesus Christ's blood was sacrificed for me, that Jesus Christ loved me, and He gave His blood for my sins. I dedicated myself to Christ right there and then.
Paul now serves as a traveling pastor in remote areas of India's Karnataka state, often referred to as a graveyard of pastors because of the intense persecution Christians face here. His church is repeatedly attacked by RSS gangs. He's been put in prison for preaching, yet it hasn't stopped his ministry.
Even in jail, I felt God's love. Even though I received the beatings, I was rejoicing, and because of that, I am grateful to God.
India, with its 1.4 billion people, is the world's largest democracy. However, human rights and religious freedom advocates say democracy has been in retreat ever since the Hindu-led BJP government and its leader, Narendra Modi, took power in 2014.
It's really the most sophisticated government as far as restricting religious freedoms outside of China.
Dr. David Curry is a commission member of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. U.S. CIRF has documented an unprecedented uptick in violence against Christians under Modi's rule. The majority of attacks carried out by RSS and other Hindu extremist groups with ties to the Prime Minister's political party. Modi is accused of fanning the flames of Hindutva, a radical ideology that teaches only Hindus are true Indians and that all other religions, especially Christians and Muslims, are foreigners who must be removed from society.
They have a goal to push Christianity out of India. They see India as the holy land of Hinduism, and they intend to force that to happen.
That includes passing laws that criminalize religious conversions, particularly targeting Christian and Muslim minorities. Last September, Karnataka became the 10th Indian state to pass these so-called anti-conversion laws, and with it carrying a 3 to 5 year prison term for anyone found guilty of illegally converting people to Christianity.
Ever since this anti-conversion law was passed, the authorities claim that we are forcibly converting people.
Joseph pastors in different cities and villages in Karnataka. We've taken similar precautions to protect his safety. He says RSS and other right-wing Hindu groups accuse him of converting Hindus by offering them money or other forms of bribes. He denies those charges.
When we started the ministry 35 years ago, we didn't have so many problems. Those days, we had religious freedom, but now we can't even talk, can't even give out a pamphlet, can't do anything. That's the situation that we find ourselves in today. Everyone has to run their churches with fear.
Like Pastor Paul, Joseph too has endured the wrath of Hindu radicals.
They've damaged my bicycles, set Bibles on fire and burnt it. Come into our church during service and beat people up. The police have come to my house several times. I've been taken to the police station and repeatedly accused of forcing people to convert. They never have any evidence.
12 of India's 28 states, most of them ruled by Modi's BJP party, now have laws regulating religious conversions. These states have also witnessed a surge in mob violence against Indian Christians.
It is amazing how Christians are standing firm in their faith.
Don Shank heads up an organization that's been sharing the gospel primarily through Christian radio broadcasts in India since 1978. His group has documented cases where Hindu extremists have discriminated against new Christian converts. Authorities, especially at the village level, do little to nothing to protect the vulnerable believers.
It is amazing the number of people who are being banned from going to the village well, not allowed to purchase foods at the market, being chased out from being ostracized from family and community, to actually being beaten, being killed, having their property destroyed.
Although the Constitution gives Christians the right to preach, Shank says the church in India must still be careful.
Pray for the believers to stand firm in their faith, and pray for those who are doing the persecution that their hearts will be changed, because we have seen that happen. A village priest threatened to smash a radio that somebody was using for outreach, but as he made those threats, he also came close and listened to the radio, and he himself embraced Jesus Christ as his Savior.
Still ahead, is artificial intelligence smarter than humans? We sit down with author Joe Allen, who is exposing what he believes is a globalist agenda. Stay with us. That story in a moment. Welcome back. Microchips implanted in our brains and artificial intelligence much smarter than humans. Appearing on this week's edition of The Global Lane, the author of the book Dark Eon exposes the globalist agenda for the future. Joe Allen explains scientism. The techno-elites believe that science and technology, not God, are the means to human salvation.
Scientism, very basically, is the belief that scientific inquiry and discovery will answer all of the existential questions in human life. All those questions which religion seeks to satisfy, scientism holds up material discovery as the means of salvation, the means of transcendence. Transhumanism is an outgrowth of that. Transhumanism is the idea that technology will be the instrument of that salvation, the instrument of that transcendence. So this is not uncommon knowledge, I think, in our era. It's, in fact, very obvious, especially in the wake of the pandemic.
Well, you mentioned that Gnostics believed in Sophia, a feminine figure that had godlike features, the female twin of Jesus, they believed. So is it by accident that one of the best-known robots of our time is named Sophia? Tell us more about that significance.
So the robot Sophia addressed the UN yet again for their Sustainable Development Goals meeting. Sophia takes her name directly from the Gnostic Aeon Sophia. So the robot was created by Hanson Robotics. David Hanson, founder of Hanson Robotics, named Sophia after the character Sophia in Philip K. Dick's novel Valis. The novel Valis has a Gnostic premise. The character Sophia is meant to symbolize the Sophia of Gnosticism. And if you look at the statements from David Hanson, if you look at David Hanson's PhD dissertation, and of course other figures in and around Hanson Robotics, it's without a doubt, there's no denying it. They are seeking to create a sort of technological inversion of what the ancient Gnostics put forward.
Well, Elon Musk has talked about implanting an AI microchip into our brain. Do you really see that happening? What would that mean for humanity? Would it make us smarter, destroy us, both?
So Elon Musk, who September 18th discussed this with Benjamin Netanyahu and also two other prestigious AI thinkers, he foresees a potential future in which, he said, hundreds of millions or billions of people would be implanted with these in order to guide AI according to human will. And this is not something that will happen. Neuralink, his company, Musk's company, just got FDA approval, but there are two other companies, BlackRock Neurotech, funded by Peter Thiel, and Synchron, which is funded by both Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. Both of these companies already have brain-computer interfaces implanted in human brains that allow them to interact with digital devices by way of artificial intelligence. This is already a reality.
Well, what about the human soul here, Joe? While they may be smarter than most humans at this point, AI and robots lack a soul. And it sounds like these creators are trying to play God or replace God. So what difference does all this make?
In their conception, and this is a generalization, but it's one that holds true for the vast majority of the people, transhumanists, futurists, accelerationists, long-termists, you pretty much universally see the human brain as the soul. The patterns of the human brain are what Christians would call the soul. They are almost entirely atheist. They see these systems as being the creation of godlike artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence. In fact, Mo Gaudat himself describes it explicitly in these terms. He believes that the programmers at Google are creating a God that never existed in his mind. They are playing with fire.
Yeah, it's
big time.
Yeah, trying to play God. So what do we do about it?
You know, at this point, given that we're talking about the wealthiest man on earth, the most powerful corporations on earth, the most powerful military on earth, and all of their competitors in China, India, and Israel and Europe, I think probably this is not the most optimistic. Brace yourself.
Not much we can do.
I mean, I think on an individual level, there's plenty. And on a communal level, there's plenty. But I think there's going to be a lot of sacrifices for anybody who doesn't want to play along with this whole thing.
Okay, the book is Dark Aeon, Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. Joe Allen, thanks for providing us with your insights. We appreciate it.
Very glad to. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Another college experience revival during a Christian event. It happened at Auburn University in Alabama, where some 2,400 students were baptized in a nearby lake. CBN News spoke with Jenny Allen, best-selling author and the founder of If Gathering, who was involved in Unite Auburn's Night of Worship, about what happened that night as God poured out His Holy Spirit on the arena.
It was such a move of God. And, you know, I have been a part of moments like that in the past, specifically with Gen Z. And I want to say that because there is something very special happening right now, I believe, in their hearts. I think they are hungry for God and they want God.
Allen credits the prayers and support of the local churches around Auburn for ushering this movement of the Lord. You can get the remarkable details of this important story on cbnnews.com. Folks, that is it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. Remember, you can find more of our awesome news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. We hope you'll join us again next time. From all of us here, have a great day. Goodbye, and God bless.